Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to another in our series of double shot interviews where we bring in a minister or a CEO or someone interesting to talk about things we're interested in, and often that means property, house prices, interest rates. And today we've got Peter Thompson, the spokesman for the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand, and he's also the managing director of Barfoot and Thompson, which is Auckland's biggest chain of real estate agencies. Welcome to interest.co.nz, Peter.
Thanks, Bernard.
Tell us about what you saw in the month of October in the housing market across New Zealand.
What we saw in October was a slight disappointment, if you like, in certainly the residential market. We didn't see our traditional spring lift that we were expecting. But what we have seen is the average or the average median price has still remained the same, around 350,000. So the volumes have fallen, the number of sales made, but the average median price has remained the same as what it was in September.
Why do you think the volumes are down?
That's a good question. If we knew the answers, we would love to know. But I think there's just still the uncertainty in the market. People are still holding off. Interest rates are good, so the banks are lending money, and there's good buyers out in the market, but people are just reluctant to put their house on the market because there is just that little negative talk in the pipeline. Because
we've had the tax changes announced in the May budget, and interest rates are down from where they were a couple of years ago. Do you think that some people are waiting for prices to fall before they jump in to buy?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think people are listening to commentators, they're listening to the media and expecting prices to fall and hoping to get that good buy. But what we're seeing, especially over the last 3 months, that the average median price has been basically the same, but it's just the volume of sales that has fallen. So I don't think the prices are going to fall much more. We hope, certainly from our own company perspective, we've seen a lot of uptake in the last 2 weeks, so there is more activity, and I'm hoping that the figures for the sale volumes will go up in November and December.
And what sort of variability are you seeing across the country between markets?
It's quite a wide difference, to be honest with you. The areas like Northland and Canterbury both went up in the number of sales and the average median price last month, and it was good to see Canterbury come back, but I think it's possibly a little bit too early to tell what the true market in Christchurch is going to be. But it was good to see that the sale volumes was up again in Christchurch. Northland was quite a different change to the rest of the country, where we saw that going up. But then if you look at the Lakes districts down in Central Otago and Southland, where we saw quite heavy falls in both the average median and also the volume.
Now, you watch the Auckland market quite closely. Is there a sort of a microclimate going on in Auckland?
No. What we are seeing is that there's good sales in all price ranges right throughout Auckland. Traditionally, when there's been a change in the market with prices falling back or going up, it's generally been one area or the other that it's had to change, whereas at the moment real estate in Auckland is consistent right through the area in both the volume and in the prices. So there isn't sort of any one area that's sort of moving more than the other either.
And what effect is leaky buildings having in Auckland and the North Shore?
I think it's right throughout the country, to be honest with you. It certainly does have an effect. People are very conscious of plaster construction these days, and again, it's a little bit like Christchurch. I think there's with the earthquakes, there's the structural building people that are going through, looking at the properties and taking their time to make a decision whether they are suitable or whether they're leaky or not.
Now, in the last few months, there's been some changes in the real estate agency industry. We've got a new authority. What impact has that had on the way real estate agents operate and the way they're regulated?
I think it's been a positive move. I think without exception, most of the licensees have accepted that sort of a police barrier is in place, and we have to be more careful. I'm not saying that we weren't before. It's always in any situation you've got one or two bad eggs that actually ruin it for everyone else, and that's not just real estate, that's every industry.
On that bad egg front, yesterday an agent was convicted of mortgage fraud. Is that something that has happened quite frequently in the past, and is it ended, or do you think it was just a one-off?
You had to raise that. Yes, that was what two of our salespeople actually were found guilty, and that has been over a 4-year case now. It happened 4 years ago when the market was at its highest, and basically there was opportunities that they took, and they price rise the mortgage applications, made falsified declarations, and they got caught, and they do the crime, they do the time, and sadly both will be spending time in imprisonment. So it is a warning for all real estate agents, but just follow the systems correctly.
Now, not all real estate agents are members of the REINZ now. Does that mean that the figures that you're reporting on sales are less accurate than they used to be?
That's a question that's commonly asked to us, and talking with the Institute yesterday, they can't give a definite answer of whether it's 100% of the statistics given to us or not, because we're still waiting for the Real Estate Agents Authority, the new authority that we come under, to be able to tell us how many how many agencies, that's companies, actually work in New Zealand. Once we have those figures, we'll be able to then see how many are actually submitting them to the Institute. All indications are certainly that all the major companies are providing them, but there may be one or two small ones that may not be, but it's too hard to tell at this stage. Yep. Certainly I would tend to think that we would still be around that 89 to 92% that would be submitting that were previously.
Now, in the past, there have also been some private sales that are outside of the numbers that come in through from the REINZ. What's your view on how the number of private sales has changed over the last couple of years as the markets come off the boil?
Yeah, interesting question. We, as a company, not as an industry, but as a company, we did our own survey on private sales last year, and we worked out approximately 1 in 5 or 20% of properties that were on the market were private sales. Looking at the various websites, and I won't talk about realestate.co because they don't have private sales, but certainly Trade Me, which is well known, their figures that they've given us have gone from about 20% of last year down to between about 8 to 10%. So significantly less properties are going to private sales at the moment, but that could be also a reflection of the market.
So people deciding that with the tougher market they want to bring in an agent, is that right?
That's partly the reason, or not listed at all.
Now, also with these tougher times, people are looking at different ways to sell their property. What are you seeing changing in the way people advertise, market their property as times get tougher?
I think a lot more people are going the way of auction because there are a lot of good buyers out there, and it's making that buyer having to make a decision quicker rather than taking their time. Also with an auction, the auction period is based over a 3 or 4 week campaign, so vendors or clients as they're now known as don't have to worry about open homes for quite a long period. Where, going back say 2 or 3 years ago, we would have been selling about 80% under the hammer. Now it's around about 40 to 45% under the hammer. So although they're not selling, what it's doing is still introducing people to the property, but if we go about a week past the auction, we're getting back up to that 80% that are selling. So they may not necessarily sell under the hammer at auction, but after a week after the auction, we're finding about the same success rate. And
if I'm a seller, what's cheapest for me, if you like? An auction or selling it normally, I suppose you'd call it?
Well, I suppose that's a hard question. If you're just taking on what it is by putting on the market to sell, obviously an auction you do pay a campaign amount of money for it, but also at auction there's a good chance that you will make more money than what you were possibly anticipating. So if you take that into consideration, possibly the auction would be the overall benefit for the money for the client.
Great. Hey, that's another in our series of double shot interviews here on interest.co.nz. Thank you very much to Peter Thompson,
Pleasure.
the Managing Director of Barfoot & Thompson based here in Auckland, and also a spokesman for the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand.